Miranda Vega checked her watch and sighed. Another meeting had run late, pushing her arrival to the annual summer party at the Oak Ridge Country Club well past its scheduled start time. As a successful contract attorney, she'd grown accustomed to juggling her professional demands with social obligations. But today, she'd promised her children, Lucas and Sophia, that she wouldn't miss the poolside festivities that marked the unofficial start of summer for their close-knit community. The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow across the manicured grounds as Miranda navigated her way through the parking lot, her heels clicking against the pavement. At 39, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had spent years commanding courtrooms and negotiating million-dollar contracts. Her caramel-highlighted hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and her azure eyes, often described as her most striking feature, missed nothing. It was this attention to detail that had earned her the reputation as one of the most formidable contract attorneys in the state. "Mrs. Vega, we thought you weren't going to make it," called Margaret Peterson, the club's event coordinator, as Miranda approached the entrance. "Your husband arrived with the children hours ago. A deposition ran long," Miranda explained with a practiced smile. "You know how it is. The moment you plan to leave early, someone decides they need to recount their entire life story." Margaret laughed. "Well, you haven't missed much. Everyone's gathered around the pool area. Your husband was organizing some kind of water volleyball tournament for the kids." Miranda nodded, making her way toward the pool. The sounds of splashing and laughter grew louder as she rounded the corner of the clubhouse. She paused momentarily to slip off her heels, feeling the cool stone tiles against her bare feet. The familiar faces of neighbors and friends dotted the landscape, some lounging in chairs with colorful drinks, others gathered around the grill where someone's husband was undoubtedly explaining the proper way to cook a steak. Her gaze swept across the scene, searching for her family. Lucas would be easy to spot. At 13, he'd recently hit a growth spurt that had left him towering over his classmates. Sophia, her 10-year-old, would likely be in the shallow end of the pool, showing off the swimming techniques she'd been perfecting all spring. What Miranda saw instead stopped her cold. There, in the deep end of the pool, was her husband of 10 years, Thomas Reed. But he wasn't organizing a children's volleyball game as Margaret had suggested. He was pressed against the pool wall, a young blonde woman positioned intimately between his legs. The woman's hands rested on Thomas's shoulders, her head thrown back in laughter at something he'd whispered in her ear. His hands gripped her waist beneath the water, holding her close in a way that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Miranda's breath caught in her throat. For a moment, the world around her seemed to freeze, the laughter and splashing fading into a distant buzz. In that suspended moment, she catalogued every detail with the same precision she applied to legal documents. Thomas's expression of pure delight, the woman's youthful beauty. She couldn't be more than 28. The easy intimacy of their body language, the matching drinks perched on the pool's edge beside them. Then, as if feeling the weight of her gaze, Thomas looked up, their eyes locked across the crowded pool deck. Miranda watched as recognition, shock, and then panic washed over his face in rapid succession. His hands immediately released the woman's waist, and he practically shoved her away from him. "Miranda!" he called out, his voice carrying across the pool area, drawing curious glances from nearby guests. The young woman turned, confusion evident on her face, as she tried to understand the sudden shift in Thomas's demeanor. When she spotted Miranda standing there, her expression changed from confusion to something more complex, a mixture of surprise and what almost looked like recognition. Thomas was now climbing out of the pool with the graceless urgency of a man whose comfortable world was crumbling beneath him. Water cascaded from his body, creating a small flood on the pool deck, as he grabbed a towel and hastily wrapped it around his waist. The abrupt movement caused a wave to splash over the pool's edge, drenching the shoes of Barrett Jenkins, who had been standing nearby with a plate of barbecue. "Hey, watch it!" Barrett protested, jumping back too late. But Thomas wasn't listening. His attention was fixed solely on Miranda as he made his way toward her, leaving wet footprints in his wake. Around them, a peculiar transformation was taking place. The once boisterous partygoers suddenly became intensely interested in anything but the unfolding drama. Melissa Turner, who had been chatting animatedly just seconds ago, now studied her phone as if it contained the secrets of the universe. The Taylor family, positioned at a nearby table, collectively decided that their napkins required immediate and thorough examination. Even old Mr. Pierce, known for his nosiness, abruptly turned to inspect the clubhouse architecture with newfound appreciation. Miranda stood perfectly still, her face a mask of composed dignity that belied the storm raging within. Years of courtroom experience had taught her how to maintain an unflappable exterior regardless of what surprises opposing counsel might throw her way. This skill served her well now, as she refused to give the gathering crowd the satisfaction of a public meltdown. "Miranda, I can explain," Thomas said as he reached her, water still dripping from his swimming trunks onto the stone tiles between them. His voice had that particular tone she recognized from countless arguments, the one he used when he was about to spin a web of half-truths and rationalizations. "I'm sure you can," Miranda replied, her voice steady and low. But not here. In the pool, the young woman had made her way to the ladder, climbing out with the languid grace of someone half Miranda's age. She reached for a towel, wrapping it around her slim figure, as she watched the interaction between Miranda and Thomas with undisguised interest. "This isn't what it looks like," Thomas continued, running a hand through his wet hair. "Natasha is a financial consultant. We were discussing potential investments." Miranda's eyebrow arched slightly, the only visible crack in her composed facade. "Between your legs? How innovative." A few feet away, someone choked on their drink, making a poor attempt to disguise it as a cough. Thomas flushed, the red creeping up from his neck to his face. "That's not fair. You're making assumptions based on—" "I'm making observations based on evidence," Miranda corrected him, the attorney in her automatically framing the situation in legal terms. "A skill I've refined over 15 years of practice. Now, I suggest we continue this conversation at home." She turned, scanning the pool area for her children. She spotted Lucas sitting at a table with some other teenagers, his face buried in his phone, thankfully oblivious to the drama unfolding. Sophia was in the shallow end of the pool with her friends, engaged in what appeared to be an intense game of Marco Polo. The children should stay and enjoy the party, Miranda decided, her voice leaving no room for negotiation. "I'll ask the Jenkinses to bring them home later." As she moved to speak with Thomas Jenkins's wife, Sarah, Miranda noticed Thomas's phone lighting up on a nearby table. Without breaking stride, she picked it up, noting the notification preview from a banking app. Something about a transfer completed to an account she didn't recognize. She slipped the phone into her purse with the casual efficiency of someone accustomed to gathering evidence. Thomas, still trailing behind her like a chastised schoolboy, either didn't notice or didn't dare to object. Miranda spoke briefly with Sarah Jenkins, arranging for the children to be brought home later. Sarah's eyes darted between Miranda and Thomas, her expression a mixture of concern and poorly concealed curiosity. "Of course, we'd be happy to bring them home," Sarah agreed quickly. "Is everything okay?" "Perfectly fine," Miranda assured her with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thomas and I just need to discuss some household matters." As they made their way to the parking lot, Miranda was acutely aware of the whispers that followed in their wake. The Oak Ridge community thrived on gossip, and by tomorrow morning, every detail, both real and imagined, would be circulating through book clubs and golf foursomes, with the efficiency of a legal brief being passed through a high-powered firm. "I'll drive," Miranda announced as they approached their vehicles, her tone brooking no argument. Thomas opened his mouth as if to protest, then seemed to think better of it. "Let me at least change first," he said, gesturing to his still damp swimming trunks. "You can change at home," Miranda replied, unlocking her sleek black sedan. I wouldn't want to keep you from explaining. What did you call it? Your potential investments? The drive home passed in tense silence. Thomas stared out the window, occasionally shifting uncomfortably in his wet swimwear. Miranda drove with precise, controlled movements, her mind already cataloging and analyzing, preparing for the confrontation to come with the same methodical approach she applied to her most complex cases. Their home, a tasteful Tudor in one of the city's most prestigious neighborhoods, stood as a testament to their successful marriage, or what Miranda had believed was a successful marriage until 30 minutes ago. As she pulled into the driveway, she noted with bitter irony how perfect everything looked from the outside. The manicured lawn, the carefully tended flower beds, the warm light spilling from the windows that Thomas had left on when he departed with the children hours earlier. Once inside, Thomas immediately headed for the stairs. I need to change. By all means, Miranda replied, setting her purse, with Thomas's phone still inside, on the marble-topped kitchen island. I'll pour us some drinks. I have a feeling we're going to need them. While Thomas disappeared upstairs, Miranda retrieved his phone from her purse. Years of marriage had made her familiar with his password. Their wedding anniversary, a detail that now struck her as tragically ironic. She quickly navigated to his banking app, her suspicions confirmed as she reviewed the recent activity. Regular transfers, $2,000 each, to an account labeled Meridian Consulting over the past 6 months. A larger transfer of $20,000 from what she recognized as Lucas and Sophia's college fund just last week. And most damning of all, a pending transfer scheduled for tomorrow morning, $50,000 from their joint investment account. Miranda set the phone down, a cold clarity washing over her. This wasn't just an affair. This was financial infidelity on a massive scale. She heard Thomas's footsteps on the stairs and quickly returned the phone to her purse. By the time he entered the kitchen, dressed in casual clothes with his hair still damp, Miranda was leaning against the counter, 2 glasses of scotch beside her. 18-year-old McCallan, she said, sliding 1 glass toward him. I was saving it for your birthday next month, but I think we can agree this conversation warrants the good stuff. Thomas took the glass cautiously, as if suspecting she might have poisoned it. Miranda, I know what you saw today looked inappropriate, but inappropriate? Miranda echoed, taking a measured sip of her scotch. That's an interesting choice of words. Inappropriate is wearing white after Labor Day. Inappropriate is telling your mother-in-law her meatloaf tastes like seasoned cardboard. What I saw today was a betrayal. But that's not even what concerns me most right now. She set her glass down with deliberate care. What concerns me is Meridian Consulting and the $20,000 you transferred from our children's college fund last week and the $50,000 you're planning to move tomorrow. The color drained from Thomas's face. His fingers tightened around the scotch glass, knuckles whitening. You went through my phone? Yes, Miranda admitted without a hint of remorse. And you've been going through our savings. Care to explain why our children's future is being funneled to a consulting company I've never heard of? Thomas swallowed hard, his eyes darting around the kitchen as if searching for an escape route. When he finally spoke, his voice was strained. It's an investment opportunity. Something with tremendous potential. I was going to tell you once the initial returns started coming in. An investment opportunity, Miranda repeated flatly, with the pool girl. Natasha is a financial consultant, Thomas insisted, an edge of desperation creeping into his voice. She has an MBA from Wharton. She's identified some emerging markets that… Oh, I'm sure she's identified something, Miranda cut in. Namely, a successful middle-aged man with access to substantial funds and a weakness for young blondes in bikinis. Thomas's expression hardened. That's not fair. You don't know her. And you do. Biblically, it would seem. Miranda took another sip of scotch, feeling the burn trail down her throat. Tell me, Thomas, does Natasha know you're married with 2 children? Or did that detail somehow slip your mind between financial consultations? The flush returned to Thomas's face. Of course, she knows I'm married. She's not. It's not what you think. Then enlighten me, Miranda challenged, folding her arms across her chest. What exactly is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're having an affair and siphoning our family's money to fund it. Thomas set his untouched scotch on the counter with a sharp click. I don't have to justify myself to you. You're never here anyway. Always at the office. Always with your cases, your clients. When was the last time you were actually present in this marriage? Miranda felt the words like a slap, but years of legal training had taught her to recognize a deflection when she heard one. So, this is my fault? Your hand on another woman's waist? Your hand on our children's future? That's because I work too much? It's not that simple, Thomas said, running his hands through his hair in frustration. You wouldn't understand. Try me, Miranda suggested, her voice dangerously calm. I'm a highly educated professional with an exceptional grasp of complex situations. Simplify it for me. Thomas stared at her for a long moment, then seemed to deflate. Natasha has a business idea, a legitimate one. She needed startup capital, and I saw an opportunity to diversify our investments. Without discussing it with me, Miranda pressed, without proper documentation, without considering the risk to our family's financial security? I was handling it, Thomas insisted. Like you were handling her at the pool today? Thomas's jaw tightened. I don't have to listen to this. I'm going out. As he turned to leave, Miranda's voice stopped him cold. If you walk out that door, you'd better take everything you need, because I'll be changing the locks before you return. He turned back slowly, disbelief evident in his expression. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life, Miranda assured him. I'm calling my attorney tomorrow morning. I suggest you do the same. Miranda, don't do this, Thomas pleaded, his tone shifting to one she recognized all too well, the voice he used when trying to charm his way out of trouble. We can work through this. Couples go through rough patches all the time. A rough patch is when we argue about your mother's extended visits or my late nights at the office, Miranda countered. This is a Category 5 hurricane of deception, and I won't stand in its path pretending it's just a spring shower. Thomas took a step toward her, his expression softening into the look that had once made her heart race. 15 years together, Miranda. 10 years of marriage. 2 beautiful children. Are you really willing to throw all that away without even trying to understand? For a moment, doubt flickered across Miranda's face. Then her gaze hardened again as she remembered the sight of Thomas and Natasha in the pool, the evidence of financial betrayal, the calculated deception that had been going on for months. I understand perfectly, she said quietly. I understand that the man I married wouldn't recognize an ethical boundary if it slapped him across the face. I understand that you've been lying to me, stealing from our children, and making a mockery of our marriage. What else is there to understand? Thomas's charm dissolved, replaced by a cold anger. Fine. If that's how you want it, that's how it'll be. But don't think this will be easy, Miranda. I know people. Miranda actually laughed at that, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. And I know contract law, financial regulations, and 12 of the best divorce attorneys in the state. I'd reconsider whatever you're threatening, Thomas. They stared at each other across the kitchen island, the remnants of their marriage crumbling in the space between them. I'm going to pack some things, Thomas finally said. Do that, Miranda agreed, and leave your house key. As of tonight, you're a guest here, not a resident. As Thomas disappeared upstairs again, Miranda remained in the kitchen, slowly finishing her scotch. The house felt suddenly too large, too quiet, as if it too were holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to Sarah Jenkins's number. Sarah, it's Miranda. Would it be possible for Lucas and Sophia to stay overnight with you? Thomas and I need to sort some things out. She paused, listening. Yes, They have overnight bags in the car. Thank you. I appreciate it. By the time Thomas came downstairs with a hastily packed suitcase, Miranda was sitting at the dining room table, her laptop open, already making notes for the battle ahead. "I'll be at the Westfield Hotel," he said stiffly, placing his house key on the table beside her. "I expect we can discuss this more rationally tomorrow." Miranda didn't look up from her screen. "I expect my attorney will be in touch with yours by noon. Good night, Thomas." After the front door closed behind him, Miranda sat motionless for several long minutes. The only sound in the house, the soft hum of the refrigerator, and the gentle ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, a wedding gift from Thomas's parents. Then, with the same methodical precision she applied to her most challenging cases, she began to prepare. She would not be caught unprepared again. Thomas had no idea what was coming, but Miranda intended to make sure he felt every bit of the storm he had created. Because if there was one thing Miranda Vega knew how to do, it was win. And this wasn't just any case. This was her life, her children's future, and her dignity on the line. She had never lost a case that mattered, and she wasn't about to start now. The next morning, Miranda woke before dawn, her mind already racing with the tasks that lay ahead. She'd slept fitfully, if at all, the events of the previous day playing on an endless loop behind her closed eyelids. The empty space beside her in the king-sized bed felt both strange and oddly liberating. She showered and dressed with particular care, selecting a charcoal gray suit that her colleagues often referred to as her shark outfit. It was what she wore to court when she needed to project absolute authority and competence. Today, she would need both in abundance. By 6:30 in the morning, Miranda was at her kitchen island, a steaming cup of coffee beside her laptop. She had already compiled a detailed spreadsheet of their family finances, highlighting the suspicious transfers Thomas had been making over the past 6 months. The total was staggering, nearly $150,000 diverted to Meridian Consulting, whatever that was. Another browser tab displayed the results of her preliminary search for Meridian Consulting. The company had been incorporated just 7 months ago, with a listed address in the upscale downtown district. No website, minimal online presence, and, most tellingly, only one named officer, Natasha Winters. Miranda allowed herself a grim smile as she sipped her coffee. Thomas had always been intelligent, but never particularly creative. He'd been using their family funds to bankroll his mistress's consulting business, which appeared to do precious little actual consulting. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Sarah Jenkins's name flashed on the screen. "Good morning, Sarah. How are the kids?" Miranda asked, injecting a note of normalcy into her voice that she was far from feeling. "They're fine," Sarah assured her. "Still sleeping. They had a great time with our boys last night. Lucas beat everyone at that video game they're all obsessed with, and Sophia made friendship bracelets for all of us." She paused, her voice softening. "Miranda, I don't want to pry, but is everything okay? After yesterday, everything is being handled," Miranda interrupted smoothly. "Thomas and I are reassessing some aspects of our relationship. The understatement of the century," she thought wryly. "Would you mind keeping Lucas and Sophia until this afternoon? I have some appointments this morning." "Of course," Sarah replied, her tone suggesting she was bursting with questions she was too polite to ask. "They can stay as long as you need. Thomas called here last night, by the way. Wanted to speak with the kids, but they were already asleep." Miranda's grip tightened on her phone. "Did he say anything else?" "Just that he was staying at a hotel and would see them soon," Sarah said. "Miranda, whatever's happening, you know we're here for you, right? The whole neighborhood is." Miranda doubted that very much. The whole neighborhood had watched her husband canoodling with a woman half her age and had collectively decided studying their fingernails was the appropriate response. But Sarah's support seemed genuine, at least. "Thank you," she said simply. "I'll pick up the kids around 4. After hanging up, Miranda returned to her research with renewed determination. Her next call was to Diane Lowenstein, the managing partner at her law firm and a close friend. "Diane, I need a favor," Miranda said when her call was answered. "I'm taking a personal day, possibly several." "That's not like you," Diane observed. "The Anderson deposition is scheduled for—" "I caught Thomas with another woman yesterday," Miranda interrupted, knowing Diane would appreciate the directness. At the country club pool, in front of half the neighborhood, a long whistle came through the phone. "Well, shit. Are we talking inappropriate flirtation or full-blown affair?" "Full-blown affair. Plus, he's been siphoning family funds to finance her consulting business, including money from the kids' college accounts." "Double shit," Diane said. "Of course you can have the time you need. Do you want me to refer you to someone for the divorce? Jessica Winters handles high asset splits, and she's absolutely ruthless." "That's exactly what I need," Miranda confirmed. "But there's something else. I want to freeze our joint accounts before Thomas can do any more damage. I need to know the fastest, most legally defensible way to lock everything down." "I'm on it," Diane promised. "I'll call Jessica now and have her reach out to you directly. In the meantime, document everything. And I mean everything, Miranda. Every suspicious transaction, every text, every email, anything that proves the affair and the financial misconduct." "Already started," Miranda assured her. "I've compiled a spreadsheet of all the suspicious transfers dating back 6 months." "That's my girl," Diane said with approval. "Turn that analytical brain loose on him. By the time we're done, Thomas won't know what hit him." By 9 o'clock, Miranda had spoken with Jessica Winters, no relation to Natasha, thank goodness, who had immediately filed emergency motions to freeze the joint accounts and prevent any further movement of marital assets. She'd also submitted a formal discovery request for all financial records related to Meridian Consulting. "The judge owes me a favor," Jessica had said, with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to calling in markers. "We should have the accounts frozen by noon. In the meantime, transfer whatever you can into your personal account. It's not technically illegal until a judge says otherwise." Miranda had done exactly that, moving $40,000, roughly half of what remained in their joint checking account, to her personal account. She'd also changed all the passwords to their shared cloud storage, email accounts, and online banking portals. Thomas had always been careless with digital security, relying on her to manage those details. Her phone buzzed with an incoming text from Thomas. "We need to talk. Meeting with my attorney at 11. "Dinner tonight?" Miranda stared at the message, noting how quickly he'd retained legal counsel. "Dinner tonight?" As if they were simply scheduling a regular date night, not negotiating the dismantling of their 10-year marriage. The audacity was almost impressive. She typed back, "All communication through attorneys going forward. Jessica Winters will be contacting your counsel shortly." 3 dots appeared, indicating Thomas was typing a response. Then disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared. Finally, "Don't do this, Miranda. Let's talk like adults." She didn't dignify that with a response, instead turning her attention to her next target, Meridian Consulting. A quick search of the county property records, accessible to her through her firm's database, revealed that the company had recently leased a penthouse office in the downtown business district. The lease had been co-signed by Thomas Reed as guarantor. Another search showed a luxury apartment in the same building leased to Natasha Winters, with, again, Thomas Reed as guarantor. Miranda felt a cold fury build in her chest. How many nights had Thomas claimed to be working late when he was actually playing house with Natasha in a luxury apartment he was paying for with their family's money? How many business trips had been covers for romantic getaways? Her phone rang again, an unfamiliar number. She answered cautiously. "Miranda Vega?" a female voice inquired. "Speaking. This is Natasha Winters." The voice was surprisingly steady. "I think we should talk." Miranda's entire body tensed. "I have nothing to say to you." "I understand that," Natasha replied, "but I have things I need to say to you, things you should know about Thomas." Despite herself, Miranda was intrigued. Such as? Not over the phone, Natasha insisted. Can we meet? In public, of course. I'll come alone. Seats. Every instinct in Miranda's body screamed that this was a trap, yet her legal mind recognized the potential value in hearing what Natasha had to say. At the very least, it might provide additional ammunition for the divorce proceedings. The Riverside Cafe. 30 minutes. Miranda named a busy spot downtown, public enough to prevent any scene but quiet enough for a private conversation. I'll be there, Natasha confirmed, then hung up. Miranda sat motionless for several moments, considering the wisdom of meeting her husband's mistress face to face. Then she called Jessica Winters back. I just got a call from the other woman, she explained. She wants to meet. Absolutely not, Jessica responded immediately. This has trap written all over it. She'll try to record you saying something compromising or provoke you into making a scene. Nothing good can come from this meeting. Sue, or she might provide valuable information, Miranda countered. She specifically said she had things I should know about Thomas. And you believe her? The woman who's been sleeping with your husband and taking your money? Miranda sighed. I'm not naive, Jessica. I'm meeting her in a public place. I'll record the entire conversation and won't say anything I wouldn't want repeated in court. Jessica was silent for a moment. You're going to do this regardless of my advice, aren't you? Yes, Miranda admitted. Fine. But remember, anything she tells you is suspect unless you can verify it independently. And for God's sake, don't lose your temper, no matter what she says. The Riverside Cafe was moderately busy when Miranda arrived. She selected a table with a clear view of the entrance and ordered a black coffee, placing her phone on the table with the recording app open and running. Natasha arrived precisely on time. In daylight, without the distortion of pool water and Miranda's initial shock, she was even more striking than Miranda had first realized. She couldn't be older than 28, with naturally blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, and the kind of effortless beauty that made Miranda acutely aware of every fine line around her own eyes. She wore a simple but obviously expensive navy blue dress that spoke of sophisticated taste. Natasha spotted Miranda immediately and approached the table with surprising confidence. No nervousness, no shame, just purposeful determination. Thank you for agreeing to meet, she said, sitting down across from Miranda. I'm curious what you think you have to say that could possibly interest me, Miranda replied coolly, studying the younger woman's face for any sign of deception. Natasha met her gaze directly. First, I want to say, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much coming from me, but I truly didn't understand the full situation until yesterday. What situation did you think you were in, exactly? Miranda couldn't keep the edge from her voice. A relationship with a married man who was bankrolling your so-called business with his family's money? A flicker of something, anger, guilt, passed across Natasha's face. Thomas told me you were separated, that you were divorcing but keeping it quiet for the children's sake. She reached into her handbag and withdrew several documents, sliding them across the table. He showed me these. Miranda examined the papers, crude forgeries of divorce filings with what appeared to be her signature. The signature was close, but not perfect. Close enough, though, to fool someone who wasn't familiar with her handwriting. He created fake divorce papers, Miranda said slowly, anger building in her chest. And you believed him? Why wouldn't I? Natasha countered. He had an explanation for everything. Why he couldn't take me to certain restaurants. Why I couldn't visit his home. Why we always met at my apartment or the office. She sighed. Looking back, the red flags were obvious. But hindsight is 20/20, as they say. Miranda studied her carefully. So you expect me to believe you had no idea he was still married? Despite the wedding ring he wore? Despite the family photos all over his social media? He said the ring was for appearances, to make the transition easier for your children, Natasha explained. And he has no family photos on his Instagram, the account I followed. Miranda frowned. Thomas doesn't use Instagram. Yes, he does, Natasha insisted, pulling out her phone and bringing up an account. Thomas Reed Financial. He posts daily market updates, investment advice, client testimonials. Miranda leaned forward to examine the profile. It was indeed a polished, professional-looking account with Thomas's face prominently featured, but with zero personal content. No Lucas, no Sophia, no Miranda. A separate public persona he'd created for, what? His double life? This isn't his only account, Miranda guessed. Natasha's expression confirmed it before she spoke. I discovered his personal account yesterday, after seeing you at the pool. That's when I realized he'd been lying to me. She paused. That's not the only thing he lied about. I'm listening, Miranda said, her attorney's instincts now fully engaged. Meridian Consulting isn't just some shell company, Natasha explained. It's a legitimate financial advisory business. I have an MBA from Wharton and 5 years' experience at Goldman Sachs. Thomas approached me last year, said he was impressed with my investment strategies and wanted to back me in starting my own firm. With his family's money, Miranda pointed out. With what he told me was his personal investment capital, Natasha corrected. He said his soon-to-be ex-wife had her own successful career and wanted nothing to do with his new ventures. She pulled out more documents, business plans, financial projections, client contracts. Meridian is real, Mrs. Vega. We have clients. We're turning a profit. But Thomas has been skimming from that profit, diverting funds to another account I just discovered yesterday. Miranda felt her world tilt slightly. Another account? Natasha nodded grimly. After I saw you at the pool, I did some digging. Thomas has been moving money from Meridian to something called Horizon Holdings. I've never heard of it. It's not in any of our business plans, and I can't access any information about it. She pushed another document across the table. A bank statement showing regular transfers out of Meridian's business account. So he's been stealing from you, too, Miranda murmured, examining the statement. Apparently, Natasha agreed, her voice tight with controlled anger. I came to apologize, but also to warn you. I don't think either of us knows the full extent of what Thomas has been doing with the money he's taken. Miranda leaned back in her chair, trying to process this new information. It was one thing to discover her husband was having an affair and diverting family funds to support it. It was another entirely to learn that the money might be going somewhere else entirely. Why are you telling me this? Miranda asked directly. You could have walked away, started fresh somewhere else. Because I built Meridian from nothing, Natasha said, a flash of fierce pride crossing her face. Every client relationship, every investment strategy. That was me. Thomas provided capital and connections, but the business itself is mine, and I won't let him destroy it. She met Miranda's gaze steadily. Also, I have 2 younger sisters in college. I know what it means to have someone sacrifice to give you opportunities. I wouldn't have touched that money if I'd known it was meant for your children's education. Miranda found herself in the unexpected position of almost believing the younger woman. Almost. I'll need to verify everything you've told me, she said carefully. I expected nothing less, Natasha replied. She slid a flash drive across the table. This contains all the financial records for Meridian since its inception. Account statements, client contracts, communications with Thomas, everything. My attorney advised against sharing this with you, but I believe it's the right thing to do. Miranda pocketed the flash drive. Your attorney? I retained counsel this morning, Natasha explained. I'm filing to have Thomas removed from Meridian's corporate structure and accounts. She stood, smoothing her dress. One last thing, Mrs. Vega. Check the transactions on your joint credit cards for the past year, particularly charges at Cartier and Four Seasons hotels. She picked up her purse. I'm not the only woman Thomas has been seeing. With that bombshell, Natasha turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving Miranda staring after her, mind racing with the implications of everything she'd just learned. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica Winters. Judge granted the emergency freeze on all joint accounts. Thomas's attorney is already raising hell. Good, Miranda thought. Let him raise hell. He was just getting started. When she returned home, Miranda went straight to her home office and connected the flash drive to her computer. If Natasha was telling the truth, this could dramatically change her approach to the divorce. If she was lying, well, Miranda would be no worse off than she already was. The drive contained exactly what Natasha had promised: comprehensive financial records for Meridian Consulting. Miranda spent the next 2 hours combing through the data, her trained eye spotting patterns and discrepancies that confirmed Natasha's story. Meridian was indeed a legitimate business with real clients and revenue, and Thomas had indeed been moving substantial sums from Meridian's accounts to something called Horizon Holdings. A search for Horizon Holdings yielded little information. It was registered in Delaware, a state notorious for its corporate privacy laws. The registered agent was a law firm that specialized in creating anonymous shell companies. Another dead end. Following Natasha's suggestion, Miranda pulled up their joint credit card statements for the past year. What she found made her blood run cold. Multiple charges at luxury hotels throughout the city on nights when Thomas had claimed to be working late. Jewelry purchases from high-end retailers, pieces Miranda had never received. Restaurant bills for 2 at intimate establishments known for their romantic atmosphere. The pattern was clear. Thomas hadn't just been having an affair with Natasha. He'd been seeing other women as well, lavishing them with expensive gifts and experiences while systematically draining their family's resources. Miranda was so absorbed in her discovery that she almost didn't hear the front door open. She looked up sharply as footsteps approached her office. "Mom," Lucas called. "We're home." Miranda quickly closed the credit card statements and went to greet her children, pasting on a smile she didn't feel. "Hey, you two, did you have fun at the Jenkinses?" Sophia rushed forward for a hug, her 10-year-old enthusiasm undimmed by the events of the previous day. "It was awesome. Mrs. Jenkins let us make cookies, and I taught Jake how to make friendship bracelets, and we stayed up watching movies." Lucas hung back, his 13-year-old face more reserved. "Where's Dad?" he asked directly. Miranda had prepared for this question, but it still felt like a punch to the stomach. "Your father is staying at a hotel for a few days," she said carefully. "We're working through some grown-up issues." Lucas's eyes narrowed slightly. "Is this about what happened at the pool yesterday? With that lady?" So he had noticed. Miranda felt a flash of anger at Thomas for being so careless, so public with his indiscretions that their children had been exposed to his behavior. "Yes," she admitted, seeing no point in lying. "Partly about that, but there are other things too. Complicated things that aren't your responsibility to worry about." "Are you guys getting divorced?" Sophia asked bluntly, her small face suddenly serious. Miranda guided both children to the living room sofa, sitting between them. "I don't know yet," she said honestly, "but I want you both to know that whatever happens between your father and me has nothing to do with you. We both love you more than anything in the world." Lucas looked down at his hands. "Dad called while we were at Jake's. He wants us to come stay with him at the hotel this weekend." Miranda felt a surge of protective instinct. "And how do you feel about that?" Lucas shrugged, the universal teenage gesture of uncertainty. "I don't know. Weird, I guess." "You don't have to decide right now," Miranda assured them both. "And you don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with." Sophia leaned against Miranda's arm. "I don't want you and Daddy to get divorced," she said in a small voice. Miranda wrapped an arm around her daughter, pulling her close. "I know, sweetheart. I know." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of normal activities, helping with homework, preparing dinner, listening to Sophia's elaborate plans for her upcoming birthday. Miranda maintained the facade of normalcy with practiced ease, but her mind continued to race with everything she'd learned and everything she still needed to do. After the children were in bed, Miranda returned to her office and called Jessica Winters. "I need a forensic accountant," she said without preamble. Someone who can trace money through shell companies and hidden accounts. You found something? Jessica asked. I found evidence that Thomas has been skimming money, not just from our family accounts, but from his mistress's business as well, Miranda explained, and possibly seeing multiple other women on the side. Jessica gave a low whistle. Well, he's certainly been busy. I'll get my best financial investigator on it first thing tomorrow. She paused. Miranda, I should warn you, the more rocks we turn over, the uglier this could get. Are you prepared for that? Miranda thought of her children, of the trust that had been broken, of the future that had been put at risk by Thomas's selfish actions. I'm not just prepared, she said with quiet determination. I'm counting on it. Thomas chose to declare war on our family. He's about to learn he picked the wrong opponent. As she hung up, Miranda's gaze fell on a family photo on her desk. All four of them on a beach vacation last summer, smiling into the camera, the picture of domestic bliss. She turned the frame face down, a symbolic gesture that felt both painful and necessary. The woman in that photo, the one who had trusted her husband implicitly, who had believed in their partnership, that woman no longer existed. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who would fight with every legal tool and strategy at her disposal to protect what mattered most. Thomas had no idea what was coming, but he would soon enough. The next morning arrived with the harsh clarity that follows life-altering revelations. Miranda woke early again, her mind already running through the day's battle plan before her feet touched the floor. She checked her phone to find 3 missed calls from Thomas and a text that simply read, "This is getting out of hand. Call me." She deleted the message without responding and headed for the shower. Today would require all her focus and none of her sentimentality. Downstairs, she found Lucas already at the kitchen table, absently pushing cereal around his bowl while scrolling through his phone. He looked up when she entered, his expression carefully neutral in that way teenagers have when they're trying to hide their feelings. "Morning," Miranda said, pouring herself coffee. "You're up early?" Lucas shrugged. Couldn't sleep. Miranda studied her son's face, noting the shadows beneath his eyes that mirrored her own. At 13, he was at that awkward stage between boy and young man, tall and lanky, with Thomas's dark hair and her own observant eyes. Too perceptive for his own good, sometimes. "Dad kept texting me last night," Lucas said abruptly, "asking if we're okay, if you're okay, saying he loves us and misses us." He looked up at Miranda, his gaze direct and questioning. "He says it's all a big misunderstanding." Miranda set her coffee down carefully. "And what do you think?" Lucas's gaze dropped back to his cereal. "I think he's lying. I saw him with that woman. They didn't look like business partners." The bitter edge in his voice made Miranda's heart ache. "I'm sorry you had to see that," she said softly. "Your father made some choices that have hurt our family. So you are getting divorced," Lucas concluded. "I've filed the papers," Miranda confirmed, seeing no point in sugarcoating the truth. "But there will be time to figure out what that means for all of us. Right now, my priority is making sure you and Sophia are protected." "From Dad?" Lucas sounded confused. "From the fallout," Miranda clarified. "Divorce is complicated, especially when it involves—" She stopped herself, realizing she was about to say financial misconduct, as if speaking to a colleague rather than her 13-year-old son. "When there are disagreements about money and property," she amended. Lucas seemed to consider this. "Is that why you were on the phone with a forensic accountant last night?" Miranda blinked in surprise. "You heard that?" "I came down for water," Lucas admitted. "You sounded angry." "Not angry," Miranda corrected gently. "Determined. There's a difference." Before Lucas could respond, Sophia bounded into the kitchen, her energy a stark contrast to the somber mood. "Mom, I need to wear my blue shirt today for the class picture, but I can't find it," she announced. "Check the laundry room," Miranda suggested, grateful for the mundane interruption. "I think I washed it yesterday." As Sophia dashed off, Lucas stood and carried his bowl to the sink. I told Dad I don't want to stay with him this weekend, he said quietly, his back to Miranda. I don't care if he's at some fancy hotel. I'd rather be home. Miranda felt a rush of relief mixed with concern. That's your choice, she assured him. But remember, no matter what's happening between your father and me, he's still your dad. It's okay to love him and be angry with him at the same time. Lucas turned, his expression surprisingly mature. I know, but right now, I'm just angry. After getting both children off to school, Miranda headed not to her law office but to First National Bank, where she and Thomas had maintained their accounts for over a decade. Despite the emergency freeze ordered by the judge, Miranda wanted to ensure no further assets could be moved or accessed without her knowledge. The bank manager, Harold Thompson, greeted her with the deference reserved for high-value clients. Mrs. Reed, how can I help you today? It's Ms. Vega, actually, Miranda corrected. I've always used my professional name. A minor point, perhaps, but it felt important today to reclaim that independence. I need to review all activity on our joint accounts for the past year, and I'll need copies of all statements and transaction records. Harold's smile faltered slightly. I'll need to verify authorization for that level of detail, especially for joint accounts. Miranda slid a document across the desk, the court order freezing the accounts, which explicitly granted her full access to all records. I believe this addresses any authorization concerns. Harold examined the document, his expression growing increasingly uncomfortable. I see. This is unusual. Not as unusual as you might think, Miranda replied evenly. Divorce happens every day, Harold. Sometimes under complicated circumstances. Of course, he agreed hastily. It's just that Mr. Reed was here yesterday afternoon, requesting similar information. Miranda's spine stiffened. Yesterday? After the freeze order was issued? Harold fidgeted with his tie. He presented documentation showing he was authorized to access the accounts, despite any temporary restrictions. Our legal department reviewed it and approved limited access. A cold fury settled in Miranda's chest. What kind of documentation? I'm not at liberty to discuss that, Harold hedged. Client confidentiality. I'm also your client, Miranda pointed out, and I have a court order explicitly preventing any access to these accounts without my knowledge. She leaned forward slightly. Harold, I'm not sure if you're aware, but obstruction of a court order is a serious offense, as is aiding in the concealment or movement of assets during divorce proceedings. The implied threat wasn't subtle, and Harold's discomfort visibly increased. Perhaps I should consult with our legal department again. Perhaps you should, Miranda agreed. And while you're at it, I'd like the name of whoever authorized Thomas's access yesterday, as well as copies of whatever documentation he provided. Harold retreated to a back office, leaving Miranda seething quietly in her chair. Thomas was clearly moving faster than she'd anticipated, finding ways around the freeze order through whatever connections or influence he possessed. When Harold returned 20 minutes later, he was accompanied by a woman in a crisp suit, who introduced herself as Angela Dawson, the bank's legal counsel. Ms. Vega, Angela began, her tone professionally neutral, I understand there's some confusion about access to your joint accounts. No confusion, Miranda countered. A clear violation of a court order. Angela placed a folder on the desk. Mr. Reed presented this order yesterday, signed by Judge Carlton. She opened the folder to reveal a document that did indeed appear to be a judicial order, countering the freeze by granting Thomas limited access to specific accounts. Miranda examined the order carefully, her legal training immediately spotting several irregularities. This order is dated before Judge Michaels's freeze order, she noted, and it appears to be limited to a single account, the business expense account for Reed Financial Advisors. Yet according to Harold, Thomas was granted access to our joint accounts as well. Angela frowned, taking the document back and studying it more carefully. You're right. The authorization should have been strictly limited to the business account. She turned to Harold. What access was granted yesterday? Harold swallowed nervously. Mr. Reed reviewed statements for all joint accounts and requested wire transfer capabilities be restored for the investment portfolio. And was that done? Angela asked sharply. Our system shows a pending transfer of $200,000 scheduled for this morning, Harold admitted, to an offshore account. Miranda felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. $200,000, a significant portion of their retirement savings, about to disappear into what was almost certainly an untraceable account. Cancel that transfer immediately, Angela instructed Harold, her professional demeanor giving way to clear concern. And freeze all transfer capabilities on every account connected to either Mr. Reed or Ms. Vega. As Harold hurried to comply, Angela turned to Miranda with a grim expression. Ms. Vega, I owe you an apology on behalf of First National. It appears our staff misinterpreted the scope of Mr. Reed's authorization. Rest assured, we'll conduct a full review of yesterday's activities and provide you with complete documentation for your attorney. I appreciate that, Miranda said, struggling to maintain her composure. But I'd like confirmation that the transfer has been canceled before I leave today. Of course, Angela agreed. And I should inform you that this incident will be reported to the court, as it represents a potential attempt to violate the asset freeze. By the time Miranda left the bank 2 hours later, she had a thick folder of account statements, transaction records, and a notarized letter from Angela Dawson detailing Thomas's attempted end run around the court order. The transfer had been successfully canceled, but the episode had revealed just how far Thomas was willing to go to protect his financial interests and potentially hide assets from the divorce proceedings. In her car, Miranda called Jessica Winters to update her on the morning's events. He tried to move money offshore. Jessica sounded both outraged and oddly impressed. Bold move. Stupid, but bold. He nearly succeeded, Miranda pointed out. If I hadn't gone to the bank in person. But you did, Jessica interrupted. And now we have documented evidence that he attempted to violate a court order. That's going to look very bad for him when we get in front of a judge. She paused. Did you get a chance to look through the account statements? Just briefly, Miranda said, flipping through the folder beside her. But enough to confirm what Natasha told me. There have been regular transfers to both Meridian Consulting and this mysterious Horizon Holdings, dating back at least 18 months. Thomas has been planning this for a long time, Jessica. Which makes our job easier, Jessica noted. Premeditated financial misconduct is much more straightforward to prove than impulse decisions made in the heat of marital discord. She paused. How are you holding up with all this? It's a lot to process. The question caught Miranda off guard. She'd been operating in pure tactical mode, moving from one task to the next, without allowing herself to fully feel the emotional impact of Thomas's betrayal. I'm fine, she said automatically, then sighed. Actually, that's not true. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm worried about the kids. But mostly, I'm determined to make sure Thomas doesn't get away with any of this. Good, Jessica approved. Channel that determination. We've got a preliminary hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning at 10. Judge Michaels wants to review the freeze order and hear arguments about temporary support and custody arrangements. So soon? Miranda was surprised. I called in a favor, Jessica admitted. Given Thomas's attempt to move assets offshore, I argued that time was of the essence. Will Thomas be there? With his attorney, Gerald Hoffman. You know him? Miranda grimaced. Unfortunately, we've been opposing counsel on a few corporate cases. He's shrewd but arrogant. Tends to underestimate women attorneys. Perfect, Jessica said with satisfaction. I love when they underestimate us. Makes victory that much sweeter. After hanging up, Miranda sat in her car for several minutes, staring at the bank's imposing facade. 2 days ago, her life had seemed so settled, so secure. Now she was preparing for a custody and assets hearing, investigating offshore accounts, and trying to unravel a web of financial deception that spanned at least 18 months. What else didn't she know about the man she'd married? The thought was both terrifying and infuriating. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Jenkins. "Lunch? You look like you could use a friend right now." Miranda smiled despite herself. Sarah must have seen her sitting in the bank parking lot. The Jenkinses' insurance agency was just across the street. "Cafe on the corner in 15, she texted back. "See you there," came the immediate response. 15 minutes later, Miranda slid into a booth across from Sarah, grateful for the simple normalcy of meeting a friend for lunch. "You look like hell," Sarah said bluntly, pushing a menu toward Miranda, in a sophisticated power attorney kind of way. "But still, have you slept at all?" "Not really," Miranda admitted. "It's been a challenging couple of days." Sarah snorted. "That's putting it mildly. The whole neighborhood's talking about what happened at the pool. Half the women want to organize a lynch mob for Thomas, and the other half are terrified their husbands might be next." "Terrified their husbands might be caught, you mean?" Miranda corrected dryly. "Exactly," Sarah agreed. "Though for what it's worth, Thomas has always been in a league of his own when it comes to egotistical self-importance. No one's really surprised he thought he could get away with it. They're just shocked he did it so publicly." Miranda sighed. "It wasn't just the affair, Sarah. He's been diverting family funds, hiding money in offshore accounts, even stealing from his mistress's business." Sarah's eyes widened. "Seriously? What a piece of work." She reached across the table and squeezed Miranda's hand. "I'm so sorry. 10 years of marriage. And then to find out he's been living a double life. At least triple," Miranda corrected. "I have evidence he's been seeing multiple women, not just Natasha." "Jesus," Sarah breathed. "What are you going to do?" "Take him to the cleaners," Miranda said simply. "He messed with the wrong attorney." Sarah grinned. "That's the spirit. And the kids? How are they handling it?" "Better than I expected, honestly. Lucas is angry but coping. Sophia still doesn't fully understand what's happening, but she knows something's wrong." Miranda fiddled with her water glass. "Thomas wants them to stay with him this weekend at the Westfield Hotel. Lucas already refused. But Sophia, she misses her dad. And you're worried about letting her go?" Sarah guessed. Miranda nodded. "Thomas wouldn't hurt her. I know that. But what if he says things to her about me? About the divorce? She's only 10. She's impressionable." "You can't control what Thomas says or does," Sarah pointed out gently. "But you can make sure Sophia knows she can always talk to you about anything that confuses or upsets her." "You're right," Miranda acknowledged. "I just hate the thought of her caught in the middle of all this." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of their server, and Miranda was grateful for the momentary distraction. After they ordered, Sarah leaned forward with a conspiratorial air. "So, you met with the other woman?" she asked. "What was that like?" Miranda couldn't help but smile at Sarah's obvious curiosity. "Not what I expected," she admitted. "She claims Thomas lied to her, too. Told her we were already separated, and showed her forged divorce papers. And you believe her?" Miranda considered the question. "Strangely, yes. She provided evidence that Thomas has been stealing from her business, too, moving money to some mysterious offshore account." Sarah shook her head in disbelief. "The more I hear, the more I wonder if any of us really knew Thomas at all." "I'm starting to think I didn't," Miranda confessed, the admission painful despite its obvious truth. 10 years of marriage, and he was hiding this whole other life, other lives, right under my nose. "Don't do that," Sarah said firmly. "Don't blame yourself for his lies. Thomas is the one who broke your trust, who betrayed your family. This is on him, not you." Miranda managed a small smile. "My rational brain knows that. The rest of me is still catching up." Their lunch arrived, and Miranda was surprised to find she was actually hungry. Between bites of her salad, she filled Sarah in on the upcoming hearing and her confrontation at the bank that morning. "So he tried to move money offshore right after a judge froze the accounts?" Sarah whistled low. "That takes some serious nerve. Or desperation," Miranda mused. "I'm starting to think Thomas may be in deeper trouble than I initially realized. These offshore transfers, the multiple accounts, the shell companies. It's all very elaborate for just hiding affair money. Sarah frowned. What are you thinking? Tax evasion? Maybe, Miranda said. Or something worse. The forensic accountant Jessica hired is digging into everything, so hopefully we'll know more soon. As they were finishing their meal, Miranda's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. She almost sent it to voicemail, then changed her mind and answered. Miranda Vega speaking. Ms. Vega, this is David Fletcher from Reed Financial Advisors Compliance Department. The man's voice was professionally neutral, but carried an undercurrent of tension. I understand you're currently in divorce proceedings with Thomas Reed. Miranda sat up straighter, immediately on alert. That's correct. I apologize for contacting you directly, but we have a situation that may be relevant to your proceedings, and potentially to certain regulatory issues our firm is currently investigating. Sarah raised her eyebrows questioningly, and Miranda held up a finger, silently asking for a moment. What kind of situation, Mr. Fletcher? I'm not at liberty to discuss specifics over the phone, Fletcher replied. But our internal audit has flagged several transactions involving personal and client funds that require immediate attention. Given your legal background and your personal connection to Mr. Reed, we believe a conversation might be mutually beneficial. Miranda's mind raced with implications. Reed Financial Advisors was a respected firm, managing investments for wealthy clients throughout the region. If they were conducting an internal investigation involving client funds, when would you like to meet? She asked. As soon as possible, Fletcher said. This afternoon, if you're available. Miranda checked her watch. It was just past 1, and she needed to pick up the children from school at 3:30. I could be at your office by 2. Perfect, Fletcher confirmed. I'll have security expecting you. Please understand that discretion is paramount at this stage. After hanging up, Miranda met Sarah's curious gaze. Compliance department at Thomas's firm, she explained. Something about an internal audit flagging suspicious transactions. Sarah's eyes widened. Uh-oh, that sounds serious. It does, Miranda agreed, her mind already cataloging potential scenarios, none of them good for Thomas. I'm meeting with them in an hour. This just keeps getting more complicated, doesn't it? Sarah observed, signaling for the check. Miranda nodded, a grim determination settling over her. And I have a feeling we've only scratched the surface. The offices of Reed Financial Advisors occupied 3 floors of a sleek downtown high-rise, all glass and polished steel. Despite having been there numerous times for company functions, Miranda felt like a stranger as she presented her ID to the security guard and was escorted to the executive floor. David Fletcher met her in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. He was a trim man in his late 40s with salt-and-pepper hair and the carefully neutral expression of someone who regularly delivered bad news to important people. Ms. Vega, thank you for coming on such short notice, he said, shaking her hand. This is Eleanor Simmons, our chief legal officer. Miranda nodded to the stern-looking woman who had joined them. I understand there's a situation involving my husband. Yes, Fletcher confirmed, gesturing for Miranda to take a seat. As I mentioned on the phone, our internal audit has flagged several concerning transactions over the past 18 months. Eleanor Simmons slid a folder across the table. These are copies of the transactions in question. As you'll see, they involve the movement of both company and client funds through a series of accounts, ultimately ending up at an entity called Horizon Holdings. Miranda opened the folder, her heart rate accelerating as she recognized the name of the mysterious company Natasha had mentioned. And Horizon Holdings is? That's part of the problem, Fletcher explained. On paper, it's an investment vehicle for high-risk opportunities. In reality, it appears to be little more than a shell company designed to funnel money offshore. Miranda scanned the documents quickly, her legal training allowing her to grasp the essential details. Thomas had apparently been moving small amounts of client funds, never enough to trigger automatic alerts, into Horizon Holdings, describing the transfers as alternative investment opportunities in the firm's records. "These are client funds," Miranda noted, a chill running down her spine. "That's embezzlement." "Potentially," Eleanor agreed, her expression grim. "We're still determining the full scope of the irregularities. Some clients did authorize alternative investments, but we've found no documentation that they specifically approved Horizon Holdings, nor any evidence that these investments were properly disclosed or tracked." "How much money are we talking about?" Miranda asked. Fletcher and Simmons exchanged glances. "Our preliminary estimate is around $3 million, Fletcher finally said. "Possibly more as we continue our investigation." Miranda felt the blood drain from her face. This wasn't just a matter of Thomas hiding affair money or even tax evasion. This was major financial fraud involving client funds, the kind of misconduct that ended careers and resulted in prison sentences. "When did you discover this?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "The irregularities were first flagged about a week ago during a routine compliance check," Fletcher explained. "But it wasn't until yesterday, when we received notification of the court order freezing Thomas's personal accounts, that we accelerated our investigation." "So you haven't confronted Thomas yet?" "No," Eleanor said. "We wanted to gather more information first. And frankly, given your position as both his spouse and a respected attorney, we thought it prudent to speak with you before taking further action." Miranda understood the unspoken message. They were hoping she had information that could help their investigation, and possibly offering her a chance to mitigate any personal or family fallout before the situation became public. "I appreciate your discretion," she said carefully, "but I'm afraid I can't help much. I only discovered Thomas's financial irregularities 2 days ago, when I found him with another woman and began investigating our personal accounts." Fletcher nodded, seeming unsurprised. "We suspected as much. However, we do have reason to believe that Horizon Holdings may be connected to your personal finances as well." He pulled another document from the folder, a list of transfers from Thomas and Miranda's joint investment account to Horizon Holdings, dating back nearly 2 years. The amounts matched what Miranda had discovered in her own investigation, but seeing them presented as part of a larger pattern of financial misconduct made the betrayal feel even more profound. "What happens now?" Miranda asked, looking up from the document. "We're obligated to report our findings to the Securities and Exchange Commission," Eleanor explained, "and to cooperate with any subsequent investigation. Thomas will be suspended pending the outcome." "When?" "Tomorrow morning," Fletcher said. "We wanted to give you advance notice, given the potential implications for your divorce proceedings and your children." Miranda nodded, grateful for the consideration even as her mind raced with the ramifications. "And the firm's clients? Will they be notified?" "Not immediately," Eleanor said. "We're still assessing the extent of the affected accounts and developing a communication strategy. Our priority is to protect client interests while supporting the regulatory investigation." Miranda sat back, trying to process everything she'd learned. Thomas hadn't just betrayed her and their children. He'd potentially committed serious financial crimes that could result in criminal charges, hefty fines, and even incarceration. "I should note," Fletcher added, "that we've found no evidence suggesting you had any knowledge of or involvement in these activities. Your name doesn't appear on any of the questionable documents or authorizations." "Small mercies," Miranda murmured. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll need to inform my divorce attorney immediately." "Of course," Eleanor agreed. "And if you discover anything in your personal financial review that might be relevant to our investigation, we'd appreciate being kept informed." As Miranda left the building 15 minutes later, she felt as if the ground beneath her feet had shifted yet again. What had begun as a painful but relatively straightforward divorce case had morphed into something far more complex and potentially devastating. She checked her watch. Still an hour before she needed to pick up the children. She needed to update Jessica on this new development, but first, she needed a moment to collect herself. Finding a quiet bench in a small park across from the office building, Miranda sat down and took several deep breaths. The magnitude of Thomas's deception was still sinking in. Not just affairs, not just diverting family funds, but potentially criminal financial fraud that could send him to prison. What would she tell Lucas and Sophia? How could she protect them from the public fallout when the story inevitably broke? And how had she, an accomplished attorney known for her attention to detail, missed the signs that the man she married was capable of such elaborate deception? As these questions tumbled through her mind, Miranda's phone buzzed with an incoming text. It was from Thomas. "We need to talk. Emergency. Please." For the first time since discovering his betrayal, Miranda felt a flicker of something, almost like pity. Thomas didn't know what was coming. The SEC investigation, the suspension, the potential criminal charges. He was still operating under the assumption that this was just about their marriage, their divorce. He had no idea that his entire world was about to implode. Miranda stared at the message for a long moment, then typed a response. "I know about Horizon Holdings. My attorney will contact yours." She hit send, then switched off her phone, tucking it into her purse. Whatever desperate response Thomas might send, whatever explanation or plea he might offer, it would have to wait. Right now, she needed to focus on preparing her children for the storm that was about to break over their family, and ensuring that when it did, she was positioned to protect them from the worst of it. As Miranda rose from the bench, a strange sense of clarity settled over her. The anger and hurt were still there, but they had crystallized into a cold, precise determination. Thomas had created this disaster through his own choices, his own greed, his own arrogance. She couldn't control what he had done, but she could, and would, control what happened next. Starting with making sure that whatever consequences Thomas faced for his actions, Lucas and Sophia would emerge from this crisis with their future security intact and their mother's unwavering support to guide them through the difficult days ahead. By the time Miranda picked up Lucas and Sophia from school, her phone had accumulated 17 missed calls and over 20 text messages from Thomas. She glanced through them quickly while waiting in the car line, a progression from confusion to panic to something approaching desperation. "Miranda, what are you talking about? What's Horizon Holdings? Answer your damn phone! This isn't funny. Call me now. Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. Let me explain. For God's sake, think about the kids." The last message had come just 5 minutes ago. "They're freezing my accounts. All my accounts." "What did you do?" Miranda put her phone away as Lucas and Sophia approached the car, their faces brightening when they spotted her. Whatever storm was breaking over Thomas's head, she would shield her children from it as much as possible. "Hey, you two," she greeted them with a smile that felt more natural than she'd expected. "How was school?" Sophia launched into an enthusiastic account of her day, while Lucas responded with the typical teenage monosyllables. The normalcy of the moment felt like a precious gift, one that Miranda knew might be increasingly rare in the days to come. As they drove home, Miranda considered how to approach the conversation she needed to have with them. The revelations from Reed Financial Advisors had changed everything. This wasn't just about their parents divorcing anymore. It was about their father potentially facing serious legal consequences. "Mom, can we get ice cream?" Sophia asked, interrupting Miranda's thoughts. "You know what? That sounds perfect," Miranda decided. A public place might actually be better for the conversation ahead. Neutral territory with the distraction of a treat to soften the blow. 20 minutes later, they were seated at a table in Coolberry's, the local ice cream parlor that had been a family favorite for years. Sophia was happily demolishing a strawberry sundae, while Lucas picked at a chocolate cone, his expression suggesting his mind was elsewhere. "So," Miranda began carefully, "I wanted to talk to you both about what's happening with your father and me." Sophia looked up, ice cream momentarily forgotten. "Are you getting divorced?" she asked directly, repeating the question she'd posed the day before. "Yes," Miranda confirmed gently. I've filed the divorce papers, but that's not all we need to discuss. She took a deep breath. Your father is in some trouble at work. Serious trouble. Lucas's eyes sharpened with interest. What kind of trouble? Miranda considered how much to share, balancing honesty with age-appropriate information. There are some problems with how he's been handling money at his company, the kind of problems that might result in him losing his job and possibly facing other consequences. Like going to jail? Lucas asked bluntly. Miranda winced internally at her son's perceptiveness. That's a possibility, yes. I don't know for sure yet. There's going to be an investigation, and we'll know more in the coming days. Sophia's eyes widened in alarm. Daddy's going to jail? Not necessarily, Miranda assured her quickly. And if anything like that happens, it won't be right away. There's a legal process that takes time. Is that why you're divorcing him? Lucas asked. Because of the money stuff? No, Miranda said firmly. I filed for divorce because of what happened at the pool. The fact that your father was involved with another woman, breaking the promises he made to our family. The financial issues came to light afterward. Sophia looked confused. You mean the lady he was swimming with? I thought she was his work friend. That's what he told me when I asked him. Miranda and Lucas exchanged a glance, and she saw from her son's expression that he understood more than his sister did. She wasn't just a work friend, Sophia, Miranda explained gently. Your father was having what's called an affair, a romantic relationship with someone who isn't his spouse. That's something married people shouldn't do. Sophia considered this, her brow furrowing. So he was cheating on you? Like when Joey Reynolds looked at Maddie's test answers in math class? Despite the gravity of the situation, Miranda couldn't help a small smile at the comparison. Something like that? Yes. But more serious, because we made vows to each other when we got married. That's why I don't want to stay with him this weekend, Lucas stated flatly. He's a liar. Miranda reached across the table to squeeze his hand. I understand how you feel, but it's important to remember that people can make terrible mistakes and still love their children. Your father loves you both very much. If he loved us, he wouldn't have done all this stuff, Lucas argued, pulling his hand away. It's complicated, Miranda acknowledged. Adults sometimes make selfish choices even when they care about the people those choices hurt. It doesn't excuse what he did, but I don't want you to think his mistakes mean he doesn't love you. Sophia had gone quiet, pushing her half-eaten sundae around with her spoon. If Daddy goes to jail, will we still get to see him? The innocent question broke Miranda's heart a little. Yes, sweetie. Even if that happens, and we don't know that it will, there are ways for children to visit their parents. But that's getting way ahead of ourselves. Right now, we just need to take things one day at a time. What's happening tomorrow? Lucas asked, his practical nature asserting itself. Tomorrow I have a court hearing about our divorce, Miranda explained. The judge will make some temporary decisions about things like where everyone will live and financial arrangements until the divorce is finalized. Will we have to go to court? Sophia asked, looking anxious. No, Miranda assured her. The hearing is just for the adults and the lawyers. You two will go to school as usual. Lucas looked thoughtful. Dad texted me again today, asked if we could have breakfast before school tomorrow. Miranda felt a pang of sympathy for Thomas, knowing what awaited him at work after that breakfast. But she also recognized his right to see his children before everything fell apart. If you want to go, that's fine, she said carefully. But you don't have to if you're not comfortable with it. Lucas shrugged. I guess I could go. Sophia probably wants to see him anyway. Sophia nodded enthusiastically, ice cream temporarily forgotten. I miss Daddy. Then it's settled, Miranda said, making a mental note to text Thomas later with the arrangements. He can pick you up at 7 and drop you at school afterward. As they finished their ice cream and headed home, Miranda's phone rang again. This time, it was Jessica Winters. I need to take this, she told the children as they entered the house. It's my lawyer. Why don't you start on homework while I talk to her? Once the children were settled, Miranda took the call in her home office. Thomas's attorney has been blowing up my phone for the last hour, Jessica said without preamble. Apparently, Thomas is outraged by the baseless accusations you've made about something called Horizon Holdings. Care to fill me in? Miranda quickly summarized her meeting with the compliance team at Reed Financial Advisors. So we're not just dealing with a cheating husband who moved some family funds around, Jessica concluded. We're potentially looking at a major financial fraud case involving client money? That's what it looks like, Miranda confirmed. They're reporting it to the SEC tomorrow morning and suspending Thomas pending investigation. Jessica was quiet for a moment. This changes things significantly. If Thomas is facing potential criminal charges, the divorce suddenly becomes a lot more complicated, but also potentially more advantageous for you. How so? Thomas is going to need money, a lot of money for his legal defense, Jessica explained. That gives us considerable leverage in settlement negotiations. He may be willing to agree to more favorable terms if it means resolving the divorce quickly and freeing up whatever assets he can legitimately claim. Miranda considered this. I'm not looking to take advantage of the situation, Jessica. I just want to make sure the children are protected. And they will be, Jessica assured her. But we'd be remiss not to recognize the strategic implications. Thomas created this mess. We're just navigating it as effectively as possible. After finishing her call with Jessica, Miranda sent Thomas a brief text. Lucas and Sophia would like to have breakfast with you tomorrow at 7. They'll need to be dropped at school afterward. His response came immediately. Thank you. We need to talk after. Please. Miranda didn't reply. Whatever Thomas wanted to discuss could wait until after tomorrow's hearing, and after he'd faced the consequences of his actions at work. She spent the evening helping the children with homework, preparing dinner, and maintaining as much normalcy as possible. After they were in bed, Miranda returned to her office to prepare for the next day's hearing. She was reviewing financial documents when her doorbell rang at nearly 10 o'clock. Frowning, Miranda checked the security camera on her phone. Thomas stood on the front porch, looking disheveled and agitated. Against her better judgment, Miranda went to the door, opening it just wide enough to speak to him without inviting him in. It's late, Thomas. The children are asleep. I'm not here to see the children, he said, his voice hoarse. I need to talk to you. Miranda studied him critically. His normally immaculate appearance had deteriorated dramatically in just 2 days. His hair was uncombed, his clothes wrinkled, and the shadows under his eyes suggested he'd slept even less than she had. Whatever you have to say can wait until after tomorrow's hearing, Miranda told him firmly. Or you can communicate through your attorney. Miranda, please, Thomas said, desperation evident in his voice. I know about the SEC investigation. Fletcher called me an hour ago. Then you know there's nothing I can do about that, Miranda pointed out. Those are the consequences of your own actions. You don't understand, Thomas insisted, running a hand through his hair. This isn't just about me. If this goes public, when this goes public, it's going to affect Lucas and Sophia too. Their friends, their school, their whole lives. Miranda felt a flash of anger. You should have thought about that before you started embezzling client funds and hiding money offshore. Before you started sleeping with other women and lying to our faces every day. Thomas flinched as if she'd slapped him. I know I've made terrible mistakes. I know I've hurt you, hurt our family. But please, Miranda, don't let the children suffer for my sins. What exactly are you asking for? Miranda demanded. Do you expect me to somehow stop the SEC investigation? To convince your firm to cover up potential crimes? Because that's not happening, Thomas. No, nothing like that, Thomas said quickly. I want to protect the kids from as much of the fallout as possible. And I want a chance to explain everything to you. The whole truth, not just what you think you know. Miranda almost laughed. The whole truth? From you? That would be a first. I deserve that, Thomas acknowledged, surprising her. But there's more to this situation than you realize. Things that might affect how you approach the divorce, how we handle the next few months. Miranda crossed her arms, her legal mind recognizing that whatever information Thomas possessed might indeed be valuable, regardless of her personal feelings toward him. You have 5 minutes, she said, stepping back to allow him inside but leading him no further than the foyer. She had no intention of inviting him into the heart of the home he'd betrayed. Thomas stood awkwardly in the entryway, looking around as if seeing the house for the first time. It wasn't supposed to be like this, he said quietly. Horizon Holdings. It started as a legitimate investment vehicle, a way to diversify client portfolios with higher risk, higher reward opportunities. And then I got greedy, Thomas admitted. The early returns were impressive. I started moving more money in, taking larger risks. When some investments failed, I covered the losses with new client funds, telling myself I'd replace it when the next big win came through. Classic Ponzi scheme, Miranda observed coldly. Thomas winced, but didn't deny it. I was desperate to maintain the success, the reputation. And then Natasha happened. Ah, yes, the blonde in the pool, Miranda said sarcastically. Your financial consultant. She is a financial consultant, Thomas insisted. A brilliant one. I met her at a conference last year and was impressed by her investment strategy. I brought her in to help salvage Horizon, to legitimize it. He laughed bitterly. Obviously, that's not all that happened between us. And the other women? The hotel charges? The jewelry purchases? Thomas had the grace to look ashamed. There were others. Not many. Not serious. Just distractions, I guess. From the pressure. From the lies. From the fact that our marriage had become more of a business partnership than a romance. Miranda felt a fresh surge of anger. Don't you dare blame our marriage for your infidelity. I was right here, Thomas. Working, yes. Building my career, yes. But I came home every night. I was faithful. I was honest. You're right, Thomas conceded. It's not an excuse. Nothing excuses what I did to you, to us. He hesitated, then added quietly, the irony is, the only good thing to come out of this mess was Meridian Consulting. Natasha really is building something valuable there, with clean money, legitimate clients. How comforting, Miranda said dryly. Your mistress has ethics, even if you don't. Thomas flinched again but pressed on. The point is, I know there's no salvaging our marriage. I know I've done unforgivable things, but I'm asking you, begging you, to consider a divorce settlement that shields the children as much as possible. Meaning what exactly? Meaning we keep the public fighting to a minimum, Thomas explained. We agree to generous terms for you and the kids, naturally. The house, substantial support payments, college funds fully restored. In exchange, you don't pursue punitive measures beyond what's fair. Miranda studied him thoughtfully. You're worried about your professional reputation. Whatever's left of it after the SEC investigation. I'm worried about our children having to hear their father called a criminal, a thief, a fraud, Thomas corrected. I'm worried about them carrying the stigma of my mistakes. Miranda considered his words carefully. As much as she wanted Thomas to suffer for his betrayal, she couldn't deny the wisdom in minimizing the public spectacle for Lucas and Sophia's sake. Here's what I can offer, she said finally. I won't go out of my way to destroy what's left of your reputation. I won't speak to the press or share details beyond what becomes public record, but I will pursue what's fair and right for our children, including full custody and financial arrangements that reflect the reality of your misconduct. Full custody? Thomas looked stricken. Miranda, whatever I've done, I'm still their father. I still love them. And they still love you, Miranda acknowledged, which is why I'll agree to visitation rights as long as you remain available to visit. She didn't need to elaborate on what might make him unavailable. That's fair, Thomas conceded after a moment. More than fair, given everything. One more thing, Miranda added. I want complete transparency about Horizon Holdings, Meridian Consulting, and any other financial entanglements you've created. Not just what the SEC uncovers, but everything. If I find you're still hiding assets or information, all bets are off. Thomas nodded solemnly. Full transparency. You have my word. He gave a humorless laugh. For whatever that's worth now. Not much, Miranda confirmed, but it's a start. She moved toward the door, signaling that the conversation was over. We'll see what the judge says tomorrow, and what happens with the SEC. As Thomas stepped outside, he turned back one last time. For what it's worth, Miranda, and I know it's not worth much, I really am sorry, not just for getting caught, but for everything. You and the kids deserved better. Miranda regarded him silently for a moment. Yes, she agreed simply. We did. She closed the door without waiting for his response, leaning against it as she heard his footsteps retreat down the walkway, followed by the sound of his car starting and driving away. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded Miranda that night. She lay awake, replaying her conversation with Thomas, preparing for the hearing, and worrying about how Lucas and Sophia would weather the storms ahead. By morning, she had developed a clear strategy, not just for the divorce proceedings, but for shepherding her children through the crisis as gently as possible. The next day unfolded with the surreal quality of a carefully orchestrated drama. Thomas picked up the children for breakfast at exactly 7, looking marginally more put together than he had the previous night. Lucas was reserved but civil, while Sophia clung to her father with an enthusiasm that made Miranda's heart ache. "I'll see you both after school," Miranda promised, kissing each child goodbye. To Thomas, she simply said, "The hearing is at 10. "I'll be there," he assured her, his expression unreadable. By 9:30, Miranda was seated beside Jessica Winters in the courthouse, reviewing their strategy one final time. Thomas and his attorney, Gerald Hoffman, arrived minutes before the hearing was scheduled to begin, both looking grim. "They know they're in a weak position," Jessica observed quietly. "Look at Hoffman's face. He's already calculating damage control." Judge Michaels, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with a reputation for fairness, called the hearing to order promptly at 10. The proceedings moved swiftly, with both attorneys presenting their initial positions on the temporary arrangements that would govern the divorce process. Jessica argued eloquently for Miranda to retain the family home, primary custody of the children, and continued access to the joint accounts that had been temporarily frozen. She also requested a more comprehensive asset freeze, citing the disturbing evidence of systematic financial misconduct they had discovered. Gerald Hoffman, normally an aggressive litigator, offered surprisingly little resistance. His arguments focused primarily on ensuring Thomas maintained reasonable visitation rights with his children and access to enough funds for living expenses and legal fees. The hearing took an unexpected turn when Judge Michaels addressed the attorneys directly. "I've reviewed the financial disclosures submitted by both parties," she said, her expression severe, "as well as the notification from the Securities and Exchange Commission regarding their pending investigation of Mr. Reed. Given these unusual circumstances, I'm inclined to issue a more comprehensive temporary order than I might otherwise consider." She proceeded to grant virtually everything Jessica had requested. Miranda would retain exclusive use of the family home and primary custody of the children. Thomas would have supervised visitation rights twice weekly and every other weekend. The joint accounts would remain frozen except for specific household expenses and children's needs, with Miranda as the designated administrator. Most significantly, Judge Michaels ordered a comprehensive forensic accounting of all assets associated with either Thomas or Miranda, including business interests, investment accounts, and any offshore holdings. "The court takes a very dim view of attempts to hide marital assets," she stated firmly, looking directly at Thomas. "Mr. Reed, I strongly advise full cooperation with this process. Any evidence of continued concealment will be considered contempt of court, with all applicable penalties." Thomas nodded silently, his face pale but composed. As the hearing concluded, Miranda felt a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. The legal victory was unquestionable, but watching the public dismantling of what had once been a loving marriage brought no joy. Outside the courtroom, Gerald Hoffman approached Jessica with an unexpected proposition. My client would like to discuss settlement options, he said quietly. He's prepared to be extremely generous in the interest of resolving this matter efficiently. Jessica glanced at Miranda, who nodded slightly. We're willing to listen, Jessica replied, but given the evolving situation with the SEC investigation, any agreement would need to include provisions for potential future developments. Understood, Hoffman agreed. Perhaps we could schedule a conference next week after the initial SEC findings are available? As they parted ways, Miranda caught Thomas watching her from across the hallway. Their eyes met briefly, an entire decade of shared history passing between them in a silent exchange that acknowledged both what had been lost and the reality that there was no going back. Miranda was heading toward the parking garage when her phone rang. The caller ID showed David Fletcher from Reed Financial Advisors. Ms. Vega, Fletcher began as soon as she answered, I wanted to inform you that we've completed our initial review of the Horizon Holdings situation. The findings were more concerning than we initially anticipated. Miranda stepped into a quiet alcove, away from the bustling courthouse corridor. How so? The total amount diverted appears to be closer to $5 million, not $3 million as we estimated yesterday, Fletcher explained. And we've discovered evidence that suggests Thomas was not acting alone. Miranda frowned. What do you mean? Was Natasha Winters involved after all? No, Ms. Winters appears to have been unaware of the full scope of the situation, just as she claimed, Fletcher said. But we've found communications between Thomas and several senior brokers at our firm, indicating they may have been complicit in directing client funds to Horizon without proper authorization. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just Thomas acting alone in a misguided attempt to cover his personal indiscretions. This was potentially a coordinated scheme involving multiple financial professionals. Has Thomas been notified of these findings? Miranda asked. He was informed 30 minutes ago, Fletcher confirmed. He's currently meeting with the firm's partners and legal team. After hanging up, Miranda sat in her car for several long minutes, absorbing this latest development. The situation had expanded far beyond a simple divorce case, beyond even the betrayal of one man against his family. Thomas was now at the center of what appeared to be a significant financial fraud investigation, one that would inevitably become public knowledge. Her thoughts turned immediately to Lucas and Sophia. How would they handle the media attention that would surely follow? How could she shield them from the whispers, the uncomfortable questions, the potential stigma? Miranda drove directly to her law firm, where she found Diane waiting in her office. I heard about the hearing, Diane said, rising to embrace her friend. Jessica called, said you got everything you asked for. And then some, Miranda confirmed, sinking into her chair. But the situation keeps getting more complicated. Reed Financial just discovered evidence that Thomas may have been part of a larger scheme involving multiple brokers at the firm. Diane whistled low. That's going to be a media-feeding frenzy when it breaks. Exactly what I'm worried about, Miranda agreed. The kids are already struggling with the divorce itself. Add in potential criminal charges against their father, reporters possibly showing up at our door, classmates whose parents may have lost money in the scheme. You're thinking about taking a leave of absence, Diane guessed, studying Miranda's face. Miranda nodded slowly. Just until things settle down. The children need stability right now. Someone fully present to help them navigate this mess. Take all the time you need, Diane assured her. The firm will manage without you for a while, and your clients will understand. There's something else I'm considering, Miranda added hesitantly. The house, our house, is in one of the most visible neighborhoods in the city. Everyone knows everyone's business. Lucas and Sophia are going to be subjected to endless scrutiny and gossip. You're thinking of moving? Temporarily, at least, Miranda confirmed. My parents still have that lake house about an hour outside the city. It's peaceful, private, and the local school is supposed to be excellent. It might give the kids some breathing room while the worst of this blows over. Diane considered this. It's not a bad idea. A fresh environment, away from the immediate fallout. But are you sure uprooting them is the right move when they're already dealing with so much change? I'm not sure about anything right now, Miranda admitted, except that I'll do whatever it takes to protect them. As she drove to pick up the children from school, Miranda's phone rang again. This time, it was Sarah Jenkins. "Have you seen the news?" Sarah asked without preamble. Miranda's heart sank. "What news?" "It's all over the local business sites. Reed Financial Advisors under investigation for client fund misappropriation. Thomas isn't mentioned by name yet, but everyone in the industry will know he's involved." "That was fast," Miranda murmured. "The SEC meeting was only supposed to happen this morning." "Someone leaked it," Sarah said. "And Miranda, there's something else. According to the article, the investigation involves up to $5 million in client funds potentially diverted to offshore accounts." Miranda sighed heavily. "I just heard the same from their compliance department. It's worse than they initially thought." "How are Lucas and Sophia doing with all this?" Sarah asked, her voice softening with concern. "They don't know the full extent of it yet," Miranda said. "They know their father is in trouble at work, that we're getting divorced because of his affair. But they don't understand the potential legal consequences, the public scrutiny that's coming. If there's anything we can do to help—" "Actually, there is," Miranda said, making a decision. "I'm thinking of taking the kids to my parents' lake house for a while, just until the worst of this blows over. Would you be willing to check on the house occasionally? Collect the mail, that sort of thing?" "Of course," Sarah agreed immediately. "Whatever you need. But Miranda, are you sure running away is the answer?" "I'm not running away," Miranda corrected firmly. "I'm creating space for my children to process a very difficult situation without the added pressure of being under a microscope. There's a difference." After hanging up, Miranda arrived at the school just as classes were letting out. Lucas and Sophia emerged from the building together, Lucas keeping a protective eye on his younger sister as they navigated the crowds of students. Miranda watched them approach the car. These resilient young people who were about to face challenges no child should have to endure. In that moment, her resolve hardened. She would do whatever was necessary to guide them through this crisis, not by shielding them from all pain or truth, but by creating a safe space where they could process their feelings and emerge stronger on the other side. As they climbed into the car, Lucas immediately sensed something was different. "What happened?" he asked. "You have that look." "What look?" Miranda asked, genuinely curious. "The one you get when you're about to tell us something important," Lucas explained. "Like when you told us Grandma was sick, or when you said we were moving to the new house." Miranda smiled faintly at her son's perception. "You're right. I do have something important to talk to you both about. But first, how was breakfast with your father this morning?" Sophia launched into an enthusiastic description of the super awesome pancakes they'd had, while Lucas simply shrugged and said, "It was okay. Dad seemed weird, though, like he was trying too hard." "Did he say anything about work, about the problems we discussed yesterday?" Miranda asked carefully. "He said he made some mistakes, but that he was going to fix them," Lucas reported, "and that no matter what happens, he loves us and will always be our dad." Miranda nodded, recognizing the careful language Thomas had used, truthful without being frightening, preparing the children for changes without revealing the full severity of the situation. "Your father is right about that," she acknowledged. "He will always be your dad, and he does love you very much." She took a deep breath. "But the problems at his work are more serious than we first thought, and they're likely to become public soon." Sophia looked confused. "Public-like on TV? Possibly," Miranda admitted. "At the very least, in the newspapers and on local news sites. And when that happens, people might start asking questions or saying things about your father that could be uncomfortable for you." Lucas's expression darkened. "You mean like calling him a criminal?" "Something like that," Miranda confirmed, impressed once again by her son's perceptiveness. "Which is why I'm thinking we might take a little break from the city for a while. Spend some time at Grandma and Grandpa's lake house." Sophia's eyes widened with excitement. "Really? With the tire swing and the canoe and everything?" Yes, with all of that, Miranda smiled, grateful for her daughter's ability to find joy even in difficult circumstances. We'd stay for a few months, maybe through the summer. You'd attend the local school there to finish out the year. What about Dad? Lucas asked. Would he visit us there? Miranda hesitated, uncertain how to answer without revealing too much about Thomas's potential legal troubles. Your father would still see you regularly, but the arrangements might be different than what we initially discussed. We're still working out those details. Lucas seemed to accept this, but his next question caught Miranda off guard. Are we running away because you're ashamed of what Dad did? No, Miranda said firmly, meeting his gaze in the rearview mirror. We're not running away, and I'm not ashamed. Your father made serious mistakes, but shame isn't productive for any of us right now. We're creating space to heal, to process what's happening, to figure out our new normal without the pressure of being under everyone's watchful eye. I want to go, Sophia declared decisively. The lake house has frogs. Our house doesn't have any frogs. Miranda smiled despite herself. That's true. The lake house definitely wins on amphibian population. When would we go? Lucas asked, his tone suggesting he was considering the idea more seriously. I was thinking this weekend, Miranda replied. We'd pack what we need for now, and I can come back for anything else later. As they pulled into their driveway, Miranda noticed a news van parked across the street. It had already begun. The media interest, the public spectacle that would surround Thomas's case, and, by extension, their family. Let's go in through the garage, she suggested casually, pressing the remote to open the door. And how about we order pizza tonight while we make our packing lists for the lake house? That evening, as the children worked on their packing lists with varying degrees of enthusiasm, Sophia's included 17 stuffed animals and fairy wings, Miranda's phone rang with a call from an unexpected source. Natasha Winters. Miss Vega, I apologize for calling again, Natasha began, her voice tense. But I thought you should know that the SEC investigators have been at our office all day. They've seized all Meridian's records and frozen our business accounts. Miranda moved to her home office, closing the door for privacy. I'm sorry to hear that. Are they treating Meridian as part of the fraud? No. They've made it clear I'm not a target of the investigation, Natasha clarified. But as a business closely connected to Thomas, we're under scrutiny, and without access to our accounts, I can't pay staff or meet our obligations to clients. That sounds like something your attorney should handle, Miranda pointed out, uncertain why Natasha was calling her. My attorney is handling it, Natasha confirmed, but there's something else. Thomas came to the office just before the investigators arrived. He gave me a flash drive and asked me to pass it along to you. Said it contains information you'll need for whatever comes next. Miranda frowned. Did he say what kind of information? No, just that it was important. He seemed different. Resigned, I guess. Like a man who's accepted his fate. After ending the call, Miranda sat at her desk, staring at the blank computer screen. What could Thomas possibly have left for her that was so important? And why deliver it through Natasha, of all people? Her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Just heard from Hoffman. Thomas wants to meet tomorrow to discuss comprehensive settlement. Says he's prepared to sign over everything without a fight. Suspicious timing. Call me. Miranda did call, and they spent the next 30 minutes discussing the implications of Thomas's sudden capitulation. He knows he's facing potential criminal charges, Jessica reasoned. Probably wants to secure as much goodwill as possible before things get worse. Or he's trying to protect whatever assets he can by appearing cooperative, Miranda suggested. Either way, I want to know what's on that flash drive before we agree to any meeting. Absolutely, Jessica agreed. For all we know, it could be evidence he's trying to keep from the SEC by passing it to you, which would make me an accessory if I don't turn it over, Miranda noted grimly. Exactly. Be very careful with whatever he's sent you, Miranda. Document everything, and don't access that drive without me present. The next morning, Miranda met Jessica at her attorney's office to to examine the flash drive Natasha had delivered. With the firm's IT security expert present, they carefully scanned the device for malware before accessing its contents. "It's clean," the tech confirmed, stepping back to allow Miranda and Jessica to view the screen. The drive contained a single folder labeled "The Truth." Inside were hundreds of documents, financial statements, emails, contracts, and a video file simply named "Watch Me First." Miranda clicked on the video, and Thomas's face appeared on screen. He looked exhausted, but composed, as if he'd made peace with whatever was coming. "Miranda," he began, "if you're watching this, things have probably progressed exactly as I expected. The SEC investigation is underway, Reed Financial is distancing itself from me, and our divorce is moving forward." He sighed deeply. "I've made a complete mess of everything, and there's no undoing the damage I've caused to our family." Jessica paused the video. "Do we need to be concerned about this being some kind of confession that implicates you?" Miranda shook her head. "I don't think so. Play it." When the video resumed, Thomas continued. "The documents on this drive represent the complete truth about Horizon Holdings, Meridian, and everything else. I've held nothing back. You'll find evidence that several senior partners at Reed Financial were not only aware of what I was doing, but actively participated in directing client funds to Horizon. They're already working to make me the sole scapegoat, but these emails and meeting recordings prove otherwise." He leaned closer to the camera. "I'm not sharing this to reduce my own culpability. What I did was wrong. Period. I betrayed our marriage, stole from our children's future, and violated the trust of my clients. I deserve whatever consequences come my way." His expression softened slightly. "But Lucas and Sophia deserve to be protected as much as possible. That's why I'm giving you everything. All the leverage you'll need to negotiate the most favorable divorce settlement possible and to ensure the firm compensates our family for the damage my actions will cause to our reputation and future." Thomas paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "I've already instructed Gerald to accept whatever terms you propose, without contest. The house, all remaining legitimate assets, full custody. Everything you ask for is yours. It's the very least I can do." He looked directly into the camera, his eyes filled with regret. "Tell the children I love them. Tell them I'm sorry for the pain and embarrassment I've caused. And Miranda, I know it means nothing now, but I'm sorry for betraying you in every way a husband can betray a wife. You deserved so much better." The video ended, and the office fell silent. After a moment, Jessica spoke. "Well, that was unexpected." "Not entirely," Miranda said quietly. "Thomas has always had moments of genuine remorse, usually after he's been caught doing something wrong." She turned to the other files on the drive. "Let's see what else he's provided." Over the next hour, they reviewed the most critical documents. Thomas hadn't exaggerated. The evidence clearly implicated several senior partners at Reed Financial in the Horizon Holdings scheme. There were also comprehensive records of all the accounts Thomas had created, including several offshore holdings that hadn't yet been discovered by investigators. "This is extremely valuable," Jessica noted, reviewing a particularly damning email exchange between Thomas and the firm's managing partner. "With this evidence, we can negotiate a settlement that not only secures your future, but potentially includes compensation from Reed Financial itself." "I don't want their money," Miranda said. "It's not about wanting it," Jessica corrected. "It's about securing what you and your children are entitled to after being collateral damage in this fraud scheme. The firm will almost certainly attempt to distance itself from Thomas and deny any knowledge of his actions. This evidence prevents that narrative and gives us significant leverage." Miranda nodded slowly, recognizing the practical wisdom in Jessica's approach. "All right, use whatever leverage we need. But my priority remains protecting the children from as much fallout as possible." 3 days later, Miranda stood on the dock at her parents' lake house, watching Lucas and Sophia explore the shoreline. The clear water lapped gently against the weathered wood beneath her feet, and the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn. It was peaceful here, exactly what they all needed. The move had happened quickly. After meeting with Jessica to finalize their approach, Miranda had informed the children's schools of their temporary withdrawal, packed essential belongings, and driven to the lake house the following morning. Her parents, who spent most of the year at their retirement home in Arizona, had been delighted to offer their beloved summer home as a sanctuary. Miranda's phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Settlement conference concluded. Everything we asked for, approved. Reed Financial, adding substantial compensation package in exchange for NDA about partners' involvement. Thomas, fully cooperative. Call when you can. Miranda smiled faintly. At least some things were working out as planned. She had achieved the legal victory necessary to secure her children's future. But the emotional landscape remained more complicated. Lucas approached the dock, his expression thoughtful. At 13, he was navigating this crisis with a maturity that both impressed and concerned Miranda. Children shouldn't have to grow up quite so fast. "Mom," he said, joining her at the edge of the dock, "I just saw on my phone that Dad's on the news. They're saying he got arrested." Miranda took a deep breath. She'd been expecting this development, though perhaps not quite so soon. "Yes, that's likely true. The investigation has been moving very quickly." Lucas looked out over the water. "Is he going to prison?" "Probably," Miranda acknowledged, seeing no point in sugarcoating the reality. "But not right away. There will be a trial first, and that could take months, or even longer. Will we have to testify or anything?" "No," Miranda assured him quickly. "This involves his work, not our family. You and Sophia won't be part of any legal proceedings." Lucas nodded, processing this. Some kids at school, before we left, they were already saying stuff. About Dad being a criminal, about us being rich because of stolen money. Miranda put her arm around his shoulders, noting with a pang that he was nearly as tall as she was now. People talk without knowing the facts. What matters is that we know the truth, that you and Sophia have done nothing wrong, and that despite his mistakes, your father loves you very much. "Do you hate him?" Lucas asked abruptly, looking up at her. "Because I keep going back and forth. Sometimes I'm so mad I think I hate him. But then I remember good stuff, like when he taught me to fish right here, and it gets all mixed up." Miranda considered her answer carefully. "I don't hate him. I'm angry, disappointed, hurt, but hate requires energy. I'd rather put toward moving forward. And it's okay for you to have mixed feelings too. You can be angry at what he did, while still loving the father who taught you to fish." Sophia's voice called out from the shoreline, where she'd discovered a family of ducks. "Mom! Lucas! Come see! We should go look at those ducks," Miranda said with a smile. "They're clearly very important." Lucas returned her smile, a genuine one that reached his eyes for the first time in days. "Thanks, Mom, for not lying about stuff, even when it's hard. That's my promise to you both," Miranda said, squeezing his shoulder. "No matter how difficult the truth is, we'll face it together." As they walked toward Sophia and her duck discovery, Miranda's phone rang again. This time, it was Sarah Jenkins. "How's the lake house?" Sarah asked when Miranda answered. "Exactly what we needed," Miranda replied. "Peaceful, private, beautiful. The kids are already settling in." "Good," Sarah said. "Just wanted to let you know that Thomas was formally charged this morning. It's all over the local news. 7 counts of wire fraud, securities fraud, and misappropriation of client funds." "We just heard," Miranda confirmed, watching as Lucas knelt beside Sophia at the water's edge, pointing out something about the ducks. Lucas saw it online. How did he take it? Better than I expected. They both have a long way to go in processing everything, but they're resilient. "Like their mother," Sarah observed. "Oh, and that reporter who was camping outside your house finally left. I think the story's moving on to focus on the firm's partners now, thanks to whatever evidence got leaked to the authorities." Miranda smiled to herself, knowing exactly where that evidence had come from. That's good news. The less public attention on us, the better. After finishing her call with Sarah, Miranda joined her children by the water. Sophia was chattering excitedly about naming the ducks, while Lucas had found a perfect skipping stone and was teaching his sister the proper technique. That evening, after the children were asleep in their bedrooms, the same rooms they'd occupied during countless summer vacations in happier times, Miranda sat on the screened porch with a glass of wine, listening to the gentle chorus of frogs and crickets. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. Opening it, she was surprised to see it was from Natasha Winters. Just heard about the arrest. Wanted you to know I've been fully cleared by the SEC investigation. Starting fresh with Meridian in Boston next month. Thank you for your grace during an impossible situation. Miranda considered not responding, then typed back simply, "Good luck in Boston." As she set her phone aside, Miranda reflected on the strange twists life could take. 6 months ago, she'd been a successful attorney with what she believed was a solid marriage. Today, she was a soon-to-be divorced single mother whose husband faced years in federal prison for financial fraud. Yet somehow, sitting here in the peaceful darkness, she felt stronger than she had in years. The crisis had revealed not just Thomas's deception, but her own resilience, her capacity to protect what mattered most while navigating unprecedented challenges. 1 year later, Miranda stood in her office at Jenkins, Montgomery & Vega, the newly renamed firm reflecting her elevation to named partner. Through the large windows, she could see the city skyline, the same view she'd had the day Thomas's call had turned her life upside down. So much had changed since then. After 6 months at the lake house, allowing the media frenzy around Thomas's case to subside, they had returned to the city, not to their old house, which Miranda had sold, but to a charming brownstone in a quieter neighborhood. Lucas and Sophia had adjusted to their new schools with the adaptability of youth, making friends and finding their footing in this reshaped version of their lives. Thomas had ultimately accepted a plea deal, receiving a 6-year sentence with the possibility of parole after 4 years. He maintained regular contact with the children through calls, letters, and monthly visits that Miranda faithfully facilitated despite the complicated emotions they stirred in her. A knock at her office door interrupted her thoughts. Diane poked her head in, grinning. "Ready for the staff meeting? The whole team's waiting to hear about the Clayton Industries victory." "Be right there," Miranda promised. "Just finishing something up." After Diane left, Miranda opened her desk drawer and removed a small wooden box. Inside was the divorce decree, now over a year old, and a recent letter from Thomas. She hadn't opened it yet, having learned to compartmentalize that part of her life away from her daily routine. Deciding this moment was as good as any, she opened the envelope and unfolded the single page inside. "Dear Miranda," it began, "I received the children's school pictures yesterday. They look so grown up, so happy. That's your doing, and I'm grateful beyond words. The counselor here suggested I should finally properly apologize to you, not for your forgiveness, which I don't deserve, but because you should hear the truth at least once." Miranda continued reading. "The truth is that my betrayal began long before Natasha, before the financial schemes, before any of the external symptoms you discovered. It began with small lies I told myself about deserving more, about being entitled to whatever I wanted, regardless of my commitments. By the time you found us at the pool that day, I was so deep in self-deception that I barely recognized the man I'd become. You deserved a husband worthy of your brilliance, your integrity, your compassion. Instead, you got me, someone who couldn't recognize the true wealth he already possessed in you and our children. For what it's worth, I understand now what I lost, not just in material terms, but in the fundamental currency of trust and love." The letter concluded, "Lucas and Sophia are thriving because of you. They speak of your strength, your honesty, your unwavering support. You've shown them what resilience looks like in real life, not just in inspirational quotes. Whatever else I failed at, and the list is extensive, I at least helped create a family with an extraordinary mother at its heart. With respect and remorse, Thomas. Miranda folded the letter and returned it to the box, closing the drawer with a quiet finality. There was a time when such words might have cracked her composure, stirred up the pain of betrayal afresh. Now, they simply existed as part of a story she'd already processed, a chapter closed, but not forgotten. Her phone buzzed with a text from James Harrington, the environmental law specialist she'd been dating for the past few months. "Still on for dinner tonight? Made reservations at that new place you mentioned." Miranda smiled as she typed her response. Looking forward to it. Their relationship was still new, unfolding with the deliberate pace of two people who understood the value of building on solid foundations. James had his own divorce in his past and respected the careful boundaries Miranda maintained around her heart and her children. Gathering her notes for the staff meeting, Miranda paused at the office door, looking back at the space she'd created for herself. The awards on the wall, the children's artwork framed beside her law degree, the comfortable chair where clients sat to receive her focused attention. This was her life now. Not the one she'd planned, not the one she'd expected, but one she'd built deliberately from the pieces of what had shattered. In many ways, it was stronger than before, reinforced by the knowledge of her own capabilities, her unwillingness to settle for less than she deserved. As she headed toward the conference room, Miranda reflected on the most important lesson she'd learned through this journey, that sometimes the most devastating betrayals could ultimately lead to the most profound liberation. Thomas's deception had broken their marriage, but in doing so, it had freed her to discover just how powerful she truly was. Not just as an attorney, but as a woman who could face unimaginable challenges and emerge not merely intact, but transformed. The woman who had stood frozen at the edge of that pool, watching her marriage dissolve in chlorinated water, would never have imagined the life she now led. A life defined not by what had been lost, but by what had been found in its place. Deeper relationships with her children, a thriving career built on her own terms, and most importantly, an unshakable trust in her own strength. That strength, Miranda now understood, had been there all along. It had simply taken a crisis to reveal it, like a diamond emerging from tremendous pressure, its brilliance all the more striking for the darkness it had endured. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.